Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio, episode 35. We have another across the pond transatlantic show today, but successfully we've navigated these time zone issues and we've done it. We're here at the same time. None of us have been sitting here going, "Where is this asshole? I'm ready for a call." I have a big guest on today, or he's a big guest for me. I'm an absolute huge fan of his work. I'm actually a member of his website where he posts articles and stuff. I think it's fantastic. I have John Meadows. Hello.
Hi, glad to be here, Ben.
Let me get the volume up. I need more of that voice.
Okay.
Yeah, good. How's things in your world?
Things are going well. As you know, I just competed a couple weeks ago, so I'm just kind of recharging the batteries right now and kind of relaxing and just getting the gears moving again.
Nice. And how did your competition go? You pleased? You happy?
Well, it's like I posted on Facebook. If you would have told me years ago that I would get second place three times in a row at a pro qualifier, I would have said, "Hell, I'll take it. That sounds good to me." But uh, the reality is, the expectations were a little higher, and I was hoping to win, but I think I probably came in 97 or 98% of what I could have come in at, and so I don't want to say I'm happy, but it's not the end of the world either. so
Sure.
so it's all good. You move on and you get better.
Sure. So, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you, John?
I am 41.
41 and still kicking ass on the stage. You got to be pretty pleased. I know 41-year-olds that are moaning that they're too old to even exercise or, walk to the car in the rain. So, you know.
The last 2 to 3 years have actually been the most productive years of my training and the best progress I've made ever. So I know at some point that's going to stop, and and I'll probably go backwards. But until I get to that point, I'm going to keep pushing to get better.
Nice. So, for people that don't know you, some of my listeners will know you, I hope, because your information's fantastic. For people that don't know you, who are you? Who is John Meadows? Who is Mountain Dog?
Well, I've actually been around a long time, and I started competing in the '80s, and I got involved in the sport when I was 13 years old and was competing back then even. And I've always been around. What I've done over the years is I've always had a corporate job. I worked for a bank, and I've never really had time to do any kind of work to promote myself, anything with magazines. I basically would show up at a contest one year, and then you wouldn't hear anything from me again. Everybody just thought I went into a cave, and then I would reappear the next year. But it's because I was busy. I was working very demanding jobs in the corporate world, and about 4 or 5 years ago, I just said, you know what, I need an exit plan out of this world. Not because it's bad or I don't like it, but there's some other things I would like to do with my time and some other talents that I would like to use. So, I put together a plan that would allow me to, leave the bank and start doing this full time. And I was very methodical about it. I had a list of things I wanted to do, and I went and did them all, and put myself in a position to do that. So, I eventually left the bank, and it gave me time to, write articles, get my views out there, do a lot of things like that, so people would get to know me and what I, kind of how I think about nutrition and training. And it just took off, and here we are. So it's been good.
Well, I'm pleased for you, dude. I'm glad you made that step because I found your work and I enjoy it a lot. You touched just then about nutrition and training. Is there one area that like really piques your fancy? Do you concentrate a bit more on it because it just interests you more?
It goes back and forth. I'll have this crazy interest in something. It could be taking care of your liver. And then, 2, 3 months later, I got this crazy interest in occlusion training. Right now, it's right now I'm going crazy with this occlusion, this blood flow restriction training, trying to experiment with that. There's always something different and interesting that comes along, and I try to keep the mindset of a beginner. And I know I don't know everything, so I'm always trying to learn, and there's always different things that fascinate me. And so at any given time, you might talk to me 6 weeks from now, and I might tell you something totally different. Well, right now I really, really like this piece. I think there's probably more misunderstanding with training than there is nutrition, but there's certainly a fair amount of misunderstanding about both that's out there. So I try to kind of put my feelings out there and where I think the gaps are and where people kind of go the wrong way. And it's just my opinion. Everybody can do what they want, but it's just my opinion, and I share it. So
Nice, nice. Well, that's a refreshing perspective for a coach, and I, there is people in the industry that you look at that are, at a fairly elite level, and they just there's just such an ego and such an arrogance with the way they go about things, and I just don't get it. Like, we're all in a journey together. Like, we all love this whole health and fitness thing and striving to be better, and I just don't get where the attitude comes from. But that's another conversation for another day. So it's obviously fresh in your mind, this occlusion training. I remember reading an article on T Nation probably a couple of weeks back on it. You know, what is it, and why are you geeking out on it? Is there some positive stuff to come from it?
well, I heard a couple years ago. You may have heard about my doctor. His name is Dr. Serrano.
Legend.
He's extremely
Yeah.
intelligent. He's actually does seminars in England all the time. Dr. Serrano was telling me about it a couple years ago, and I just kind of blew it off, and I was like, that just sounds weird, and that just sounds too weird for me. And then I started seeing and hearing a little bit more about it from people that I really respect, and I had a chance to do an interview with a gentleman on my website, Jeremy Lineky, and he's really, as far as people in that particular for that particular thing, he's really probably the most knowledgeable person I've found. And so, I'm going through this with Jeremy, and I'm thinking, this kid is a bright kid. There's a lot of data that backs up what he's saying. I think it makes sense to try it. So right now, I'm in the process of trying it, and I like what I'm seeing so far. I've done it primarily with buys, tries, quads, and hamstrings. Probably the most painful one was quads. Actually, it was really cool. So I'm playing around with it. How long I take between sets. I'm maximize that. That massive pump that you get from getting blood into the muscle and not letting it get out of the muscle. So it's a work in progress. I'm not going to tell you I'm an expert in it, but I believe in it. I believe there's good science behind it. And I just started building a new training program, and I've got a lot of people that are doing it with me right now, and we're kind of comparing notes. And 12 weeks from now, I'll be able to tell you a little bit more about what I think, and a little bit more about a lot of the people that I work with, what they think. So it's going to be interesting. I can't wait to see what we all
Nice.
figure out. I feel like I'm in first grade and I'm learning something really cool. It's great, and that's the kind of stuff that I really dig. I feel like the biggest challenge, the biggest thing that stops people from progress, and you alluded to this earlier, it's your ego. And people think they know everything. And when you get that perspective, you can only get so far.
Mm.
And so this is cool to me. I mean, I love it.
Nice. So for people listening, and from what I understand, it's you're exercising, you're warming up, you're bringing blood into the muscle, you're putting in some kind of device or restriction around the arm, like a band. You're keeping the blood in the muscle while you do your next working set, and then I take it either keeping the blood in the muscle or releasing the blood.
Yeah, the way I'm doing it right now is I'm saving it for last. Okay, so like for instance, let's say I'm training quads, for example. Um, when I'm done with all my other heavy quad work, if I'm done squatting and everything else, and then I'll finish with this. Um, and I would use it for like a leg extension. I'd wrap clear up around my groin up at the top of my leg, and I would put together a reps and set scheme that would really drive a lot of blood in there. Jeremy was saying that he likes 20, 30% of your max for some reps. I just kind of play around with the weight. It's funny how quickly you just lose it when I had 85 pounds on the leg extension yesterday, and I must have looked like a silly goof. I did, I did 15 or 20 reps. I can't remember exactly what I did. And then I rested for 30 seconds, and then I did maybe 10, and I rested for 30 seconds, and then I could only get like 6 reps. And I stood up and I literally almost fell on my can. And there were people looking at me like, what is wrong with this guy? What is he doing? Today I was doing some curls and I finished my biceps and I had a little 35-pound bar. And I did the same thing and my arms were just numb. They were completely full of blood, numb. But it's really cool. It's a really cool feeling. And as far as the science behind it, I don't think that people haven't really figured out yet. I certainly don't. And from everything I've read, these growth factors, it's, if you talk to somebody like a Brad Schoenfeld, who's an absolute awesome dude with hypertrophy. I mean, he can tell you everything about myonuclear domain and all this stuff down to the nitty gritty. None of us have this figured out, and none of us know why this stuff works. That's kind of the fun part is we play around, we figure out, oh man, this works. And, I did an interview, I don't know if you, last month, I don't know if you saw it or not on my website, a guy named John Ivey, the professor in Texas. And really good. He's a nutrient timing guy. Mm-hmm. And John said something to me that I really thought was cool. He said sometimes the practitioner, is ahead of us. It's ahead, or they're ahead of the scientists. They figure this shit out before we do. And you won't hear many science guys say that.
No.
They won't acknowledge that. And when John said that, I was thinking in my head, I've always thought that, but to hear him say it, this guy is a genius. To hear him say it, that you can actually figure stuff out before a study is published on PubMed was really cool because this is an art. And I think the best coaches can figure out stuff that works through instinct and through just using the power of observation and trying different things over a large population of people. You can find things that work that aren't documented, and you can also include things that are solid, that are proven with science, and you can mix them and you can create, I call it magic, but so that's what we try to do. We try to blend the art and the science and not get too far on either side of the pendulum, but be somewhere in the middle and get the best out of both worlds.
Nice. That's something that hugely frustrates me in the industry. I don't know what it's like in the US, but in the UK, there's definitely a certain divide. There's the kind of coaches on the ground level that are always working with people. They're always saying, right, we're going to try this, we're going to change it, we're going to mix it, we're going to bring in this theory. And then there's always people that are like, right, no, we do this because it's proven by the science, and until we are proven otherwise, we won't change things. And I'm screaming at people to say, I couldn't give a monkey's what the science says, what you think. I said, look, here's 10 people, we've tried it on 10 people, it works. Here's the photos, here's the data, here's everything. Yeah. And I'm like, and for me, the scientists are just stagnating their own progress. Don't get me wrong, I value the science, but science is never going to show everything. There's some studies that we just don't have the money to even do.
Right. Yeah, so, I mean, if you look at, for example, if you look at these studies, none of them train the way I train. So I can't tell you that I could walk through the way I train and how I layer my training, and I can walk you through it. But I can't tell you that any of it is proven the way I do it, because there's nobody that's going to do a study that puts people through a protocol that I do. Most people I probably just couldn't handle, So no, I agree with you 100%. Like I said, blend the art, blend the science, and don't get on either side of the fence too far. Keep an open mind. And, and the other thing is most people that are on one side of the fence or the other, they don't have true passion. If you have true passion, you'll want to get better, and you'll understand, and you'll open up your mind, and you'll do whatever it takes to get better. You don't care if it's art or science. You just want to get better. If you're really passionate, you just want to get better, and you'll do whatever. And passion trumps everything in my book. You have to train passionately, you have to live passionately, you have to do things with a sense of purpose. And over here, we get a lot of these young guys that really have no passion. They just think, oh, it's cool. I'm going to get magazines and I've read this work, so I'm just going to do this. And then you get these other guys that all they do is read PubMed studies and they don't appear, if you look at them, like they've ever even lifted a weight. And I'm like, yeah, it's hard for me to take you serious when you probably haven't built an ounce of muscle since birth. So passion is a big deal to me. These guys aren't passionate about building muscle. They're passionate about espousing their views, not about building muscle. That's two different things.
Definitely need more people in the trenches, and then they can talk up. Totally agree. So with your kind of interest in bodybuilding and that kind of arena, is that the majority of your day to day? Are they the kind of clients that you're coaching? Is that what your working week looks like? Just trying to take people to the stage, or is it quite varied?
Well, most of the people I work with are at a minimum intermediate level. Um, it's been so long since I worked with a beginner. I don't even know that I would know where to start now. Most of the people are intermediate to advanced. Probably half of them compete, half of them don't. Um, it's a good mix though. But whether somebody competes or not, they have the same goals. They want to lose fat and build muscle.
Yeah.
The only difference is whether they're going to get on stage and spray some Pam's cooking spray on and put on a pair of posing trucks or not. But the goal is still the same. It's just to the degree they're going to take it. So
nice. So this is either going to be a really easy question or a really hard question. In terms of what you've learned, if I transported you back 20 years, what would you apply now that you would love to apply 20 years ago from just how far your knowledge has come?
Well, two things. So I'll start with the training side of it. I was in terms of training, I was always one of those people that I didn't know how to blend. I didn't know how to attack hypertrophy from different angles. I thought you have to do something like 5 sets of 5 for every body part, or you got to do something lighter. But I didn't know how to get the best out of both worlds. I didn't understand that there was, sarcoplasmic hypertrophy and myofibrillar hypertrophy. I just thought you had to do everything a certain way. You had to add weight to the bar every single time in order to progress, right? The classical progressive resistance. Yes, that is one way to grow, but it's not the only way to grow. So I was very singular in my approach. I didn't understand how to build layers in the training to get the maximum amount of growth possible. Now, from the nutrition side, this is something I feel very, very passionate about, very strongly about, because it completely changed the way I can train. And there's a lot of pros now, seasoned pros, guys that have trained for 20, 30 years. It's changing the way they can train too. Guys like Mark Dugdale and Santana Anderson, very seasoned guys that are making awesome progress training like this due to nutrition. I believe that what you eat, I believe in nutrient timing strongly. I believe in what you eat around training has an absolute massive effect on recovery and your ability to train more frequently. The problem is all the supplements that we've looked at and people have used and have come out on the market just didn't do a good enough job. They just didn't do a good enough job. Now here's the problem. The things I like are really expensive. And I hate that. I absolutely hate that because I have clients that don't have an endless amount of money. And I know in my head, if I can get them to take, casein hydrolysate with a certain type of carbohydrate, a branched cyclic dextrin, I know if I can get them to eat a certain way, take that during training, and then eat a certain way after training, I know that their recovery is going to double, it's going to triple, and they're going to be able to train a lot more and progress a lot faster. The problem is that shit's expensive. So that's the problem I have. I wish it was, you could just buy some creatine and you could just throw in some beta alanine, but it's not that simple. I found through working with a company that I've always been a big guy. I've always been big on training 4 days a week, and I got all the way to the national level that way, and I made great progress that way. And it is a technique. It is a way to grow. But I can train now before a contest 7 days a week and never get sore. I don't know what it's like to be sore anymore. I haven't been sore in a couple of years. And it doesn't matter how hard I train because I'm really managing muscle protein breakdown and muscle protein synthesis while I'm training. But I've only found a couple nutrients that can do that. And like I said, the problem is they're expensive. So it puts me in a pickle. I want people to get the maximum benefit of what I know. So I'll tell them, look, here's what I do. If you can do this, great. If you can't, we'll work around it. And I got to kind of work from there. But if I could have done like in the last 3 years, if I could have started doing it at age 20, oh my God, the sky would have been the limit. I mean that you get double the amount of workouts in. We're hitting hypertrophy from different angles now due to the training. If I could have wrapped that all into a package back when I was 20, oh my God, it would have been awesome. I hate that I couldn't figure this shit out until I was 38, 39.
Yeah, but I bet your clients love you now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've got guys, like Mark is a good example. Mark was, he did a lot of high intensity training, and I've always said you got a pretty short life expectancy if you do the true high intensity training because of injuries. And Mark had a pec tear, he had a hamstring tear, he had a quad tear, and when he came to me, I was like, oh boy, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be able to help. And so we started working together. It's been, a year and a half or so now. And he got better and better. And then he shows up this year at a couple shows. He got second at the Canadian Pro Show and third in New York. And people did not expect that from him. People were like, wow, look at him. This is Peter McGow was saying this is the best he's looked ever. He's training 7 days a week. I got a guy, Santana Anderson, right now, is a Canadian pro. Same thing. Santana's trained 7 days a week. Doesn't get sore. Muscles just have a different look to him now. He actually weighs the same as when he competed last year, but his waist is 2 inches smaller. He just looks totally different. So this is really cool stuff, and I really enjoy it. But boy, like I said, if I could have done this when I was in my 20s, man, who knows where I could be right now.
See, this is golden information because I think one of the biggest problems that people that really, really love training encounter is that no one ever really programs sort of proper deloads in, weeks where you back off, maybe have a full rest. And people that love training, you obviously just want to do it every day. Like people that love getting in the gym, lifting weights, would love to be doing chest, back, whatever, and then repeating and then repeating and then just going and going. And, from what your research and how scientific and how specific you're getting, you're basically giving a bodybuilder his dream environment. You're saying you can train every day now. I can do that for you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The thing is, I I think it's always funny when I talk about deloads with people because I have a lot of my friends are powerlifters and I work with a lot of powerlifters and they'll say, well, I'm going to deload this week, and I'll say, well, how do you feel? I feel awesome. Well, why are you going to deload then? Well, because this piece of paper says so. Well, don't you think maybe you could make more progress over the next couple of weeks and then deload? Yeah, probably, but this paper says that I should deload every 3 weeks. Like, listen to your body. We're not all Terminators. We do have to back off, but listen to your body. If your body says you need to back off, back off. If you feel awesome, push on forward. Listen to your body. People don't listen to their body anymore. They look at spreadsheets and they let that dictate their training. I like to build in periodization into my training, but I will tell people this is flexible. We've got to have an approach to periodize your training. You have to. We can't redline our car 365 days a year. That's not practical. It's going to get you hurt and you're going to quit. But let's listen to your body. Learn your body. And so then people are like, okay, it's a little different aspects. So I really value deloading. I really value periodization. I just believe in marrying that with how your body's feeling instead of just doing it because it's in a book somewhere.
Nice. So, in terms of like bringing that flexible perspective into your diet, you as an individual and maybe the people that you coach, where do you start off with a client in terms of do you kind of teach them quite a flexible way to eat in terms of like these are the food groups that we're trying to eat, here's the rough proportions, but I want you to be quite intuitive, I want you to listen to how much food your body's almost crying out for, or are you a guy, right, we're going to take in this amount of calories, this amount of percentage of macronutrients, and we're going to hit them targets every day?
Well, the big thing with people is just get started with a plan and then adjust from there. I think people spend too much time trying to figure out a perfect diet to start. We got to get this thing perfect. It's got to be this amount of calories. Hey, look, just guesstimate, and I can tell you how to do that and start adjusting, start listening to your body. If I used to do everything built on macros, and I used to have formulas that I used to start people with calories. Sometimes I was off, sometimes I was on. The point is just get started and then adjust based on what your body's telling you. There's people that I didn't need to make an adjustment in 12 weeks. And then there's other people that we had to do an adjustment every single week for 12 weeks. If I look back at how macronutrients end up breaking down in my plans, it's typically protein, carbs, fat is typically 40-40-20. And that's on training days. And then people who have days off, they typically have a higher percentage of fat, upwards of 30%, and they have lower carbs. I didn't program that. That's just what happens after I build plans and I look at what someone's doing. That's just how the numbers always break out. And what I like to do with people is, you know, I like to be very flexible in their food choice, as long as it's a good food choice. For instance, if I tell somebody have half a cup of oats before you train, if they say, well, I would rather have cream of rice or I'd rather have a sweet potato, is that okay? Of course it's okay. Yeah, there's nothing magical about a bowl of oatmeal. It's not going to make your arms an inch bigger. It's not going to work any better than sweet potatoes. Somebody, if I put, lean meat in their diet, if I put chicken in there, I tell them now you can have turkey, you can have lean white fish. Here's some options. Give people variety. Even a very balanced, or even a very healthy diet, if there's no variation, will eventually turn unhealthy. There eventually will be some shortages of nutrients. So I like people to use different foods, rotate a lot of their foods, rotate their fruits, rotate veggies, rotate carbs, rotate protein. And, in terms of the way I structure it, most people, as long as they get their peri workout nutrition perfect, and what I mean by that is what you eat before you train, then during training, and then after training, that's the key. The other stuff, I tell people, here's the other meals. Here's an order you can eat them in. But to be quite honest with you, I don't care what order you eat them in right now. Now, once you get close to a contest or something, we get very precise. Then I want them to eat then I want them to eat a certain amount of carbs right before they go to bed, and then no carbs in the morning. And so we get a little more precise. But generally speaking, for most people, it's, hey, just get the pre-workout nutrition right to support your training, and then get the other meals in.
So you've alluded a little bit on your kind of views of peri-workout nutrition. I think it's very valuable. I think the research proves that it's very valuable. What are some of the generalizations that you like to see in people's peri-workout nutrition? So for people that are listening, if they could take away something from today, how can they maximize what they do before, during, and intra-training, or after training? Sorry.
Yeah, so this is the way I like to approach things at the beginning, and then we tweak it for the person, because just the way I do it for myself isn't necessarily the best way for the next person. But here, generally, what I like to do is I like to have somebody eat 60 to 90 minutes before they train, and I like for it to be food that's not real heavy, that's not going to sit in their gut. The last thing you want is to be working out and have this sluggish feeling that you've got a bunch of eggs in your belly or whatever it is. So I generally like for people to have a pretty quick digesting protein, and maybe just a whey isolate shake or a little bit of chicken, a little bit of fish. I like for them to have carbs that digest pretty easy. I'm a big fan of cream of rice. I'm not sure what it's actually called over there on your side of the world.
Yeah, I think we'd call it rice pudding.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I love that.
yeah.
I've got a lot of clients in England, and when I say cream of rice, they're always like, "What's that?" So, something to digest easy. And I actually like to put a little bit of fat in with that meal. Not a lot,
Yep.
just a little bit. And the reason why I do that is because I don't want a dramatic insulin response. You're using a carb that digests pretty easy. The last thing you want is to get this big shot of insulin and go hypoglycemic right when you start your training. So, but you've got a little bit of food that's digested, you feel good, now you can train, and then you introduce the intro workout nutrition. And I like to start sipping it right before 5 minutes before I start training. And that's where it's going to be, something like, over there, you probably see Pepto Pro would be an example,
Hmm.
casein hydrolysate, and the brain cyclic dextrin. You start drinking that during your workout, and that's going to do an awesome job of managing muscle protein breakdown and helping muscle protein synthesis, augmenting that process. So you use that while you're training, and depending on how long you're going to train the body part, that kind of depends. That has a uh, that will help determine how much of it to use. Like, for instance, you wouldn't use the same amount on a 30-minute arm workout that you would on a 2 hour leg workout.
Sure.
So, you take into account what you're doing. Now, you've just loaded your body with nutrients, so you don't have to rush to get that post workout meal in. You don't have to go rush and drink a shake real quick, or, people just get obsessive about I've got 5 minutes. If I don't get this protein shake down in 5 minutes, I'm in trouble. You don't have to do that. Go home, relax. You know, 45 minutes, 60 minutes later, you're going to start to feel hungry, and then have a good whole food meal. I like steak and rice, but it can be anything. Just a good, balanced whole food meal. Just that combination alone, just around that period of time, does wonders for most people.
Sure, sure. And so as a generalization, I would say that a lot of my clients or the people that I would coach would gravitate towards a lower carb approach pre-training, just off the basis of, for me, better neurological energy. It's definitely for me as an individual. I'm not a huge fan of pre-workout carbohydrates. Your theory is it very much along the lines of, look, the only thing we're trying to do right now is create maximal muscle fuel for the working muscle, uh, to create an anabolic environment as possible, and to drive our session, which is hypertrophy, which is probably going to be long and quite high volume.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And when I say eat carbs before you train, I might have people mistake what I'm saying. I might personally have 30 or 35 grams. I'm not having 100 grams of carbs.
Yeah. So small.
You
It is
know?
small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You just need a little bit. You just need to get something in there to support that training. The last thing you want to do is get 30 minutes into your workout, then all of a sudden you're hungry and you're lightheaded and you don't have any energy.
Mm.
And the drinks will help with that. But I do like to have that little bit of that food beforehand. But it's flexible. Everybody has a little bit different tolerability of the amount of food pre and what they can do intra, and that's where you kind of play around with that and you find the right. When you find the right thing for somebody, it's amazing. They're,
Mm.
oh my god, I don't think I'm training hard enough because I'm not getting sore anymore. No, now we've got this down perfect. That's why
Sure.
you're not getting sore anymore.
Sure. So uh, this has just popped into my head because you're very much in the bodybuilding hypertrophy world, and it's quite a contentious subject. I think still, even though it's been around a good 2 to 3 years, and that's the kind of topic of intermittent fasting. What's your views on it as a seasoned bodybuilder and its application to the sport of body composition hypertrophy in general?
Well, there's I want to talk first generally about a couple different approaches. There's also carb backloading,
Yeah.
there's intermittent fasting. And what I like about these theories is they have brought attention to this period of time around training and what's actually going on at a cellular level.
Mm.
And I appreciate that. That's awesome. I mean, you can't deny that training very hard with a lot of mechanical stress creates GLUT4 translocation, and you can selectively get nutrients inside a muscle cell. That stuff is all proven. And I really like the attention that these programs, these theories have brought to that time around training. So, I have very positive feelings about that because there's been um, a lot of people that also say it doesn't matter. All that matters is the amount of calories you eat at the end of the day. And I don't believe that because there's a hormonal response you get from training and how you react to that will have a lot of, will determine a lot of what happens. Intermittent fasting itself, there's a lot of people that have had a lot of success with it. So for me to say it's BS, it doesn't work, that would be absolutely silly because there's a lot of people that have done really well with it. Is it the right program for everybody? That would also be silly to say that it would work for everybody. I can tell you that, take a guy like me. Let's say I weigh 230 pounds. I typically eat 6, 7 times a day, and it's not because I believe I have to eat 6 or 7 meals a day. It's because my ass is hungry. I need to eat. I get hungry. If I were to condense that down into 2 or 3 meals, think about how big those meals would have to be. I don't like to have a huge meal that stretches my gut out and makes me feel miserable. You
Sure.
know, I might be okay with that for a week or two, but I get all these people to come to me and they're like, I just can't handle this approach anymore. I'm so tired of stuffing myself these two huge meals. It was great at first. I loved it, but I'm so sick of it.
Mm.
And there's I've yet to find somebody that put on a tremendous amount of muscle size using that approach.
Yeah,
I
sure.
think it works rather well for people in a certain kind of size range, but I don't think you're going to see any, you know, and a lot of these guys, and I'm not knocking it, I'm just talking descriptively. A lot of
Mm.
these guys, that's not what they're after. They're not trying to be a monster. And that's cool. Um, so I think you just kind of look at where does it fit what you want to do? It'll make you a little bit leaner. Does it fit will you be able to follow it? A lot of these programs, you just got to be able to follow them, and they all work to a degree. You
Yeah.
just got to follow them. So in terms of maximum hypertrophy, I don't feel like it's the best program, but I think there's a lot of health value too. There's a lot of good things that intermittent fasting does.
Mm.
So I don't write it off and say that it's silly. I think there's benefits. Would I use it? No, I'm not going to use it. But there's a lot of people that have used it and it's worked well. So good for
See,
them.
it's application, isn't it? And that's what it
Yeah.
comes down to. And I think I totally agree with you. I see the value in fasting and backloading absolutely 100%. And I think I do a lot of seminars in the UK to personal trainers, and I teach them about these theories because I've tried them extensively. And I think the best thing that it's made a trainer do about their own, or made them think about their own training, their clients' training, is that there is more at play than just a protein number, a carb number, and a fat number, because we're actually looking at physiology and the endocrinology of the body and how that can start to signal growth and or fat loss and changes, at various cellular opportunities. And I think to ignore that and just go, well, the science doesn't support fasting yet, the science doesn't support backloading. I'm like, who gives a monkeys? There's 10,000 people on a blog going, yeah, I've done it. It's working. It's doing some good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. You said it perfectly. It's about application. That's really what it boils down to.
Have you? I think I listened to a podcast a while back. I'm not sure where. You've conversed with Kiefer, who is the inventor of carb backloading, a bit, and sort of shared some theories, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
And is that, did he? Because I swear the podcast I was listening to, you were saying that it had spurred thought your end on how to apply carbohydrates in the back end of the day, but also you were starting to push more for the intra-workout carbohydrates, whereas previously you hadn't quite timed your carbohydrate intake differently in terms of the day. You might have been a traditional kind of bodybuilding eater where we look at like carbs, protein, fats the same at every meal. Is that
Yeah.
true, or am I barking up the wrong tree somewhere?
Well, what happened was I was describing the same experience I was describing to you earlier about when I started working with a supplement company. Honestly, that gave me the opportunity to try these supplements and to do it a certain way. And when I saw the benefit, I was like, "Oh my God, this is pretty amazing." So I was sharing my experience with him and what I thought, and one of the things that I mentioned in the Kiefer was training, in my opinion, and nutrition. You can't look at them individually. They got to match each other.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to use intra workout nutrition the way I like to use it, you have to train a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to go in and do some low intensity stuff, 45 minutes, it's probably overkill. It's a waste of money.
Mm-hmm.
You're not triggering all the things that you need to trigger for the intra workout nutrition to even work. So they have to work together. They have to be hand in glove. And Kiefer doesn't like to have a whole lot of. He likes to be really light on food pre-training, especially carbohydrates. And I think our discussion. My point was, it depends on how you're going to train. I have had a lot of people try my training programs, and they tried to train fasted, and every single one of them crashed and burned every time.
You're making me want to try one of your
Fail.
training programs now.
Well, and you know what, and I I grew up very poor, okay, financially. I grew up very poor, grew up with my grandmother, and I see the value. I lived on $5 a day in college, and I see the value of money. And I try to make stuff as economically as feasible as I can for people. If you can eat less, or if you can take a cheaper supplement and it actually works, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. The problem is it doesn't. It's hard to get really good results when you don't do things optimally. I'm a little older now, and financially I'm pretty well set, so it allows me to just think what works the best.
Mm-hmm.
Figure out what works the best, and then give that to people. If they can do it, fine. If not, make some adjustments. But give them what you think works the best. So that's what I try to do. I understand that some of the things that I have people do might be a little more expensive with the supplements, but guess what? Those other 10 or 15 supplements you were taking, I'm going to have you stop taking them because I don't think they were really doing anything.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it probably all, then people talk about my diet. So every single thing he advocates is organic. No, that's not true. There's a few food choices that I prefer to be organic, but not everything. That's a waste of money if you if you just think everything. So there's a when you I guess when you take a step back and you look at everything I'm doing on the outside, it looks like, man, I'm going to have to be a high roller to be able to afford to do this. That's really not true. And I've got a lot of clients that are students in college, and actually some of the guys that are the that are the tightest on money are some of the elite level people that I coach. My duty, I feel like, is to give everybody the best information, the best things that I know, and to help you get better, and then let you decide if you want to do it or not. If you do, great. If not, that's fine too.
Nice. So earlier on, I put a shout out on Facebook. I said, "Hey, I'm interviewing the big man. Have you got any questions?" And I've had a couple come in, so I'm gonna throw a couple of at you. There's a guy called Keras Moyle. He says, "What's your view on gut health, considering that you've had health challenges in the past?" And I'm assuming that was maybe why you might have reached out to someone like Dr. Serrano to sort of get a little bit of health. Purely, if I was to expand on this question, definitely probably in the last 2 to 3 years have valued the gut even more and have got really in depth to the gut lining, because for me, everything that goes into your mouth has to be processed by the stomach and the intestines, and if we don't address the optimal health of that environment, then we can't expect our physiology and our biochemistry to be perfect.
Yeah, you are what you absorb, right? So, I I was thrust into gut health in not a fun way. I had a vascular disease in my colon that caused me to almost die and to get emergency surgery and have it removed. That created a huge interest in gut health for me.
Yeah.
So I read everything I could read. I talked to the smartest people I could talk to. Um, and when the approach that I have with bodybuilding is it's what I with nutrition. Here's what I used to do. I call this the power shove approach. You power shove food until you can't take it anymore. Period. And that's how I was brought up. I was brought up that the quickest way to make the most gains was to just shove as many calories in you as you could possibly shove. Pay no attention to digestion. You just eat McDonald's as much as you can eat it. You just eat whatever. And I could have been more wrong. And there's a tremendous, if you think about it logically, if you have a meal and you don't feel like you've digested it, why would you, and you still feel kind of full? Why would you eat again? It just doesn't make sense when you think about it logically. But you're absolutely right. Everything starts with how you're digesting food. If you're not absorbing the nutrients, if you're creating distress, if you've got food insensitivities, this stuff will all hamper you in the long run. And that's why I just really got pretty deep into gut health. And it's
So,
huge.
talking about a couple of tangibles, there's a lot of clever people that listen to my podcast, so it'd be good to hear something a little bit deeper in terms of the gut. I mean, when you see when you see clients that present gut issues, what are some of the things that you're digging deeper in above and beyond intolerances and sensitivities, which I would say is quite common knowledge in the health and fitness domain now?
Yeah, most people will come to me and they've already taken some tests and so forth. But I start very basic. For instance, do you notice something with a particular food? First of all, let's start there. And a lot of people have issues with oatmeal. A lot of people have issues with sweet potatoes. So, we'll sub them out to something like cream of rice, something to digest easy. And you would not believe how a simple change like that can make a big deal. Then you get the really tough cases, the people that have Crohn's, the people that have, some major, major issues, celiac disease, and those are the challenges. Those are really tough. Mm-hmm. Because I can tell you that the traditional way that people prescribe diets, for instance, with people with Crohn's disease, is not the way I prescribe it. I use the word prescribe. I probably shouldn't say that because I'm not a doctor. I'm not trying to be a doctor. But I'll give you an example. I had a training partner for years that had Crohn's, and he was told, don't ever eat red meat. And I said, don't ever eat traditional red meat. I want you to eat grass-fed ground beef. He never had a problem eating beef again, ever. He still goes to the same farmer I go to, gets his meat. So I think a lot of it too comes down to the source of the food. There's a difference there, but it's really an experimentation game. Gut health is not an exact science. It's like people say, well, I'm constipated, which is a really bad thing. You don't want food sitting in your colon and toxins reabsorbing into your blood. So what do people say? They say, well, just eat more fiber. It's not that simple. Okay, you go ahead and you start eating eating a bunch of soluble fiber. That encourages food to stay in you even longer. Mm-hmm. So you feel even worse. It's not an exact science, and this is what I've tried to tell people. Experimentation is the king with this gut stuff. You can take some probiotics, you can try different things, you can try various digestive enzymes. Some of that stuff is horse pucky, some of it's really good. But the bottom line is there is no perfect formula because that stuff is really complex. Your immune system, where's that housed? It's housed in your gut. So we do a lot. When I come across people like this that I work with, we do a lot of experimentation. I wish I could tell you, here are the 5 steps, Ben, that I use to fix it, but it's not that simple.
Yeah, sure.
I wish it was.
So you mentioned earlier about working with a supplement company. Is it, you've written previously a few times for T Nation, right?
Yeah.
And so is that supplement company Biotest, or will I be barking up the wrong tree?
Oh no, no Biotest. That's absolutely the company. Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because there's a question. I made the assumption, put two and two together because I'm a quick chap like that. One of the people on Facebook, Adrian Pell, he said, I would love to know John's know how much he thinks Biotest supplements and support have helped him and others he has trained over recent years, and how important he thinks supplements are in general. Well, we've covered that. Would you say Biotest is kind of up there in terms of how they're developing their supplements? Because when you look at it from the UK, some of the ingredients, they're very research driven. They're always looking to test it. They're looking to test it in a research environment and a anecdotal community environment. So from us over the pond, I would look at Biotest and I would say we need more of that in the UK.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I love their products. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that every single product they have is going to turn you to a physique terminator, but beta alanine, creatine's creatine, but they are ahead of the game when it comes to this casein hydrolysate and branch cyclic dextrin. These guys are ahead of the game, and people are trying to copy them now. Now you see branch cyclic dextrin all of a sudden popping out everywhere,
Mm.
and I know the owner. And I've talked to him. We had a period of time where we talked for a couple hours a day for probably a year. And this guy, he this guy, he has one mission in life, and his mission is he's like us. He's just like us. He just happens to own a supplement company, but
Mm.
he wants to figure out how can I grow muscle the absolute fastest.
Mm.
That's his passion. And I give him a lot of credit for helping me because the nutrient combinations we did a lot of experimentation on me. I was the guinea pig for a lot of that stuff. And I would tell him, well, this worked phenomenal. This approach didn't work so good. It worked okay, but so we did a lot of experimentation, and I was a part of how those formulas were built, actually, in those supplements, and they're ahead of the game. The products that they use, if you look at like a really high grade casein hydrolysate, I don't care where you get it from. That stuff's not cheap. I mean, you can get it from whatever supplement company you want, but that is not cheap. If you get the right stuff, it's very expensive. The branch cyclic dextrin, carbohydrates are typically dirt cheap. Waxy maize is absolutely dirt cheap.
Mm.
Branch cyclic dextrin is almost as expensive as the raw ingredient as whey protein is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is really top level, and this is kind of what I was alluding to earlier when I said the challenge is I know some of the stuff isn't real cheap and it's not affordable for everybody, but it's the best. I feel like it's the best stuff out there right now. And believe me, I would love to find something better. I would love for Biotest to invent something that's better because then I would be better. But based on where I'm at right now, I think that is the top of the line intra workout nutrition. And I will tell you this: all the other supplements, fish oil has some great properties. Other than that, Ben, I don't even really have people take that many supplements. I mean, they really don't take much at all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I think people get maybe a small transient response and they see a little bit of benefit, but in the long run, I don't think there's much benefit to most supplements. I just don't. So I like to put my dollars where I think it's going to matter the most.
Sure.
And that's what I tell people too. You don't need 15 supplements. I get people that sign up that send me these lists of supplements they're taking. And I'm like, Jimmy, what are you taking this for? I don't know. My cousin said to. Okay.
I know how
Yeah.
you feel. You get people sign up, and there's like 12 supplements: CLA, ZMA, fat burn, and you're just like, but it's education. But it's kind of painful to see that people haven't taken the steps to say, do you know what? Instead of sitting down and spending 200 quid on bodybuilding.com or whatever, I'm going to spend the whole day reading forums, getting people's ideas, cross-referencing different training programs and nutrition programs, and I'll start there. I'll start there, and then I'll talk to some people, and then talk about, if I get a supplement idea off one person, I'll go and ask a couple of other people about that one supplement. But I suppose that's the beauty of marketing. Like, we're all sold into things, and some supplements have pretty ribbons and bows, and we're like, oh, it's a nice new shiny toy, and it's going to make my arms 20 inches.
Yeah.
But it's always
Yeah.
going to be like that, and it's our job to educate people to be better and to know better. So,
Yeah,
so
the hard part too is you get a lot of supplements that claim certain studies back up their effectiveness, but the studies are essentially rigged in their favor.
mm,
I'm thinking about all these nitrous oxide supplements, for example. I mean, these things were supposed to dilate your blood vessels, give you the biggest pump ever in your life. I mean, these were supposed to turn all of us into Mr. Olympias. I've yet to find a single person that had long-lasting results with a nitrous oxide supplement. Um, I know there's a company now that's doing something totally different with them, and it does seem to be effective. But my point is that these companies will come out with marketing that supposedly backs up their stuff with scientific evidence, but the scientific evidence is what I would use to wipe my butt with when I use the bathroom. It's just, it's pretty shoddy.
all I really see pre-workout supplements doing as a whole is contributing to people's adrenal fatigue.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, I tell people, what can I do before I work out if I want to get really jacked up? Just drink a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Just drink a cup of coffee. That's all you need. You don't need to, go buy the stuff that makes your heart flex want to pop out of your chest, and just
Yeah.
drink a cup of coffee.
Now, John, are you a coffee fan?
I in the mid '90s, I almost opened up a gourmet coffee shop. Actually, I was going to. That's what I was going to do for a living.
Okay.
And I'm not as knowledgeable in that subject as I used to be, but I really enjoyed gourmet coffee, espresso based beverages. I always thought was really cool. And there's a real good profit margin in that business too.
Oh, hell yeah. God.
Uh,
A large Starbucks latte cost 11p to make.
yeah,
That's
it's
good
nothing.
margins.
Yeah, they some unbelievable margin.
I only asked because for a long time, probably since about 2008, 2009, I've been a huge fan of blending together really good strong coffee and coconut oil and
Yeah,
having that pre-training. And I just wanted to ask if you tried it because I'm a big fan.
you know what? I haven't tried it for training, but I have tried it just in the mornings as something yummy, and I
Yeah.
liked it.
Oh, yeah.
And my wife likes it too. She likes to get up and do the same thing, put a little bit of coconut oil in coffee. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Coconut oil is an absolutely awesome food, and coffee. Coffee is actually, if you don't overdo it, I feel like coffee is actually a health food. I
Yeah.
mean, there's some health benefits to coffee, and so I don't avoid coffee. I don't think it's necessary to avoid it.
No. Well, we can look at the data, and coffee drinkers live 6 to 7 years on average longer. But what do
Yeah.
we know?
Yeah.
So let's wrap up because the moon is well and truly up in England, and you've probably got some work to do.
Yeah.
I saw on Facebook earlier on today that your members site has reached 1,000 members now.
That's right.
That is
Yes.
cracking news. I'm personally a member. You're the only membership site that I have a membership to because I personally think you're one of the only people that are actually constantly trying to evolve training and nutrition. So that's why I always put my pounds in your pocket. For people that are listening, what is it? Give it a little bit of an explanation.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for being a member of my site. I mean, it's a labor of love. I absolutely love doing it. And what I do is, what I saw was member sites that were really good with scientific data, but really hard to apply to real life. And I saw some membership sites that had no scientific data at all, were pretty shoddy. And what I thought, so I thought, I really want to do this. So what can I do that people will value? Because I think if you, like, for instance, if you write an article, I don't care how good the article is and how interesting it is. At the end of the day, if somebody can't take what you wrote and apply it
Mm.
and improve, then it's essentially a waste of an article because it didn't do any good. And I think every article there should be something educational in it that you can apply to get better.
Mm.
So what I did is I wanted to do both. I have several topics every month. One of them is advanced nutrition, and that's where I try. I have a guy named Bill Willis who's just about to wrap up his PhD here in Columbus. This guy's a phenomenal, brilliant dude. This guy, I can only dream of being as smart as Bill. He's a great guy. He does a lot of my advanced nutrition articles. I have an article of interest, which can be about anything, really. And the gentleman that writes that column for me is usually Scott Stevenson. Sometimes I get some other folks, but Scott is a really bright PhD here in the States, extremely, extremely intelligent guy. I also have interviews. I try to find people that are really well educated, but they also have kind of lived it, right? So I've got people that have wrote books that are actually, they don't just write books, they actually train too. People like Jeff Volek, who's really well known. The other guy I mentioned earlier, John Ivey, is a professor out in Texas. So I try to find good interviews every month. I have a section too, which is my personal favorite, called In the Trenches, and I describe to the T what I do with these competitors. Usually I try to pick an IFBB competitor because people just want to know what the pros are doing. So I will lay out exactly how I have them eat, and you've seen it. I put down exactly what their meals is, exactly how we changed it through the course of the diet. So that's pretty cool too, and that's probably the feature that people like the most. And then I have a Q&A on there. When people join, they're free to send me questions, and as long as they're reasonable with the question, I try to answer them all. And so and a workout of the month. So maybe somebody isn't necessarily ready to try a program, but hey, here's a workout for you to try. All those workouts of the month on there, and I think I'm up to about 40 of them now, were all taken from programs that I've built. So it gives you a good sense of what the programs are actually like. So all that every single month, and I feel like for $9 or whatever it is, $9.95, I think that's pretty fair ask for me.
It's a flipping steal. It's dirt cheap. So I wanna plug it because it's brilliant. Where do people go to see that information?
Well, you go to mountaindogdiet.com, and then in the upper left-hand side, you'll see I've got it. It's in a different color. It like almost jumps off the screen and hits you in the head. Like sign up now, sign up now. So as long as you get to mountaindogdiet.com, you'll see it. It's in the upper left-hand corner, and you can't miss it.
Nice. And your website, your Facebook is Mountain Dog Diet as well?
Yeah, I need to get a little bit more active on there, to be honest with you. I have a personal Facebook, and I have John Meadows, and then I have the business Facebook, Mountain Dog Diet. But the personal one is probably where you see more activity from me. But I'm going to get a little bit more active back on my other page. It's just been kind of hard to keep up.
Yeah, you probably don't want all my listeners adding you as a friend, though. You might, you might be looking over your shoulder a bit.
They can like my Mountain Dog Diet page, though. That would be cool. I think we've only got about 7,000.
Are you on Twitter?
Yes, I am. I'm on Twitter, Twitter and Facebook. Well, I have a YouTube channel too. It's my YouTube channel is kind of dual purpose. I use it to show people who sign up for my programs how to execute certain exercises, because a lot of the exercises I do are pretty unique. And then also just for people to see, some of the stuff we're doing, how we're training, just for anybody who's interested.
Sure.
The YouTube channel is Mountain Dog One, and it's pretty good. It's got a couple 2.5 million views, I think, somewhere around there. It's
nice.
It's pretty well trafficked. So Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook right now.
Nice one. Right. Well, people listening, if you want to follow John's work, then Mountain Dog Diet is, follow him. I suggest that you do take a look at his membership site, because I think it's very brilliant. It's one of the resources that I check in on every month, and I should do more. I should do more reading, but it's the nature of the beast with busy people, and it's always a battle between working and learning. For people that are watching this on YouTube, all the stuff will be in the description box. All John's links will be there, and we'll link to John's page directly at the end of this video. John, thank you very much for joining me. It's been absolutely amazing.
Hey, my pleasure, and hello to all my friends across the pond, as you put it.
Yeah, and hopefully there'll be some more friends soon across the pond.
Absolutely, I love it.
Thank you very much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please do me the great honour and leave a review on iTunes. Next week, I will release the Core 150 Shaker competition because I completely forgot to check iTunes today. That's it. I can't apologise anymore. It's my negligence. And please share it via Facebook. Check out John's page. And until next time, ciao.